Welcome, everybody. Kristy Wood-Giles here, natural health, fitness, and life coach. And I'm very excited to be joining and chatting with someone that he's not going to like that I say this, but he's a legend in our area. So, more than one person has described him like this. He's known as Bri Dickie or Bri Dickie, but to many, he's known as the Dickster.
Mm.
So I've invited him here to chat with me. There's so much we could touch on with what he has done and how he has helped people and his inspiration and motivations. But we'll try and cover as much as we can. And maybe he, as well as his wife, Shelly, will have to join us again another day. But Brian, welcome.
Thank you very much.
It's weird to
I'm
call
excited
you
to be
Brian.
here.
All right. Well, let's get started because I'm going to ask you to head backwards a little bit. Just give us a bit of your background. There's a few stories we'll share as we go too, but kind of bring us up to how you became this legendary teacher that's hit a couple of high schools in the area and motivated all of us to move and get fit and literally motivated us to do almost anything. Try to explain to us what that younger version of Brian is that maybe got you here today.
Oh boy, this is going to be tough. So I went to Chronic Lyme High School, and I had an extraordinary group of friends. They were really, really smart people, really athletic. Our parents were really amazing people as well. We liked to be around each other's parents, and they liked us to be around them. We were all members of the Chronic Lyme Canoe Club, and I think that sort of helped me feel comfortable being around adults. That was a big bonus for me moving forward. My mom was super supportive, very involved woman, a one-man army, first female counselor in Carlton Place. She was responsible for building the pool. Um, she was a force of nature, really. And my dad was a very quiet, humble, gracious guy who served the community quietly, and he supported my mom, which was pretty rare back in the day, I would say, even though we're not going back to the dinosaur age, but it was pretty rare to have support your wife doing things outside of the home. Even though my mom was a nurse, she gave up nursing to take care of my brother and I. I have two older brothers and a sister, but then she realized it was too difficult. So anyway, that helped. And then my teachers were extraordinary from kindergarten right through to grade 13. Uh, they were like amazing people, in my opinion. And again, they challenged us. Um, they supported us. They wanted us to think big. And it didn't matter whether it was phys ed in the gym or in the hallways or in town. I just had this great group of people around me that kind of believed in me and believed in all my friends. So that's kind of what helped me, and that's why I wanted to become a teacher.
That's awesome. You're right. It's such a theme I hear when I'm talking with people in our local area. You kind of hit on the three main things where, many of us are still friends today. And, people that you don't even see that often that was a friend at the time, you're so excited to see them when you do run into them. And much like you, my friends' parents brought me up just as much. And then having, the teachers in a small school literally are a major lifeline in our
Yeah.
day for sure because it's just they're your mentors and they're the people that I think almost know better when to push you and when to support you and kind of find that middle ground. And I'm forever indebted to all of them because I wonder some days how hard those days would have been had it not been for people like that around us. And you're one of those people. So that's why I've twisted your arm to come
Mhm.
on and do this because I think it's important not only for you to share how it's affected you and how it became important to you, but also for people to know and share that you have become very important to them and still to this day as a retired teacher are doing it. So I think it's amazing. So that's awesome. So you talk a lot about activity and that was the one thing that struck me with you because initially I was introduced to you as a phys ed teacher, But you didn't really stop there. It wasn't really just about sports and athletics, and if you were a student that fit into the mold. You really exposed a lot of us to everything like rock climbing and hiking and canoeing and a lot of stuff outside of the school. And so, did a lot of those things, were they a part of your life too? Or were you just, because you were interested in trying and doing everything, that's what you did?
That's a great question. Never actually thought about it. Um, well, no, I mean, I'd never done rock climbing. I'd done lots of water sports because of the canoe club. We had to take swimming lessons in the river, and you had no choice. You had to take, if you live in a town with a river, like most of us do now,
Yeah.
you're going up to that river to take swimming lessons. We had to play hockey, but it was simple then, right? Hockey wasn't the way it was today. And then my mom was she wasn't going to let me sleep in. Like I had to get up and go for a run. And I had a really dear friend named Peter McGregor, who was 2 years older than me, still is. And he would come by my house every morning, 6:15, summer, winter, cold, hot, didn't matter. And she would drag my butt out of bed if I wasn't out of bed. So I really developed a lot of discipline through that. And also was a great way to start the day. Even though I didn't really want to get out of bed, like nobody really typically does, it forced me to get up early, and I've done that for the rest of my life. So that part's been really helpful. Um, I wanted to do every sport in the world because it seemed so fun, but the reality is there's limited time. And then when I went to university, track and field was a big thing for me. And I'm like you play in almost every team at the school because it's social for thing, right? For starters. And then when I went to university, I was on the university track and field team at Western and cross country. But second year, I got married. Second year, I came back with a baby. A month old, a week old baby at the age of 20. So that kind of changed things, and I think that kind of tempered my outlook on life from that day forward. And but the part you ask about the sports, I just figured that there's so many opportunities for kids that, like, not everybody is the same shape physically, and not everybody has the same mindset. So I just tried to find anything that would interest anybody to find a positive outlet. I mean, that was kind of always my goal. I don't know if that answers the question, but
Well, it does, because I do get where you're saying. I always said, for me, I was never great at anything. I could just do a lot of things
mhm,
because that's really what I wanted to do. And
yeah.
in younger years, you don't think that's the right way to go, because you should be honing in on something. and
Mhm,
and but later in life, I've been really happy that way, because yeah, I'm willing to try anything and do anything.
yeah.
And moving into the triathlon world, I realized that it wasn't about trying to become really good at one thing, that there's space and place for people to be sort of good at a few
Mhm,
things, and there's value in that. I think one of the things that strikes me as a few, well, actually they're similar, but a few memories of you in high school was, well, one, you would literally do anything for anybody to get them involved, and one was drive them, pick them up, whatever
mhm,
it took, bike with them if they had to. But I remember you just literally grabbing kids from outside the school. One might be standing smoking, one was maybe heading down to the restaurant, and
right.
inviting them in. So it wasn't about, and they did. Like,
Mhm,
usually they did. I remember our group going for a run one day, and you passed somebody on the road that you told them to join us, and they did. And I don't even
yeah.
think they were like dressed to do it or anything, but I think that's kind of the point, though, is we've sort of lost all of that. That if we don't think of ourselves as a runner or a
Mhm,
biker, then we shouldn't do it. And I think it's the exact opposite. If you've looked out somewhere and saw somebody doing something that at all interested you or intrigued you, you are 100% meant to do it.
Mhm.
And a lot of people that become good at something was because they actually really sucked at first. And,
Yeah.
so I often think it's because you're interested in working at it that, you get better. Golf's a great example of that. None of us
Isn't it?
start that doing it very well. So,
Yeah,
I
but you
I
get
think
you get a lot of opportunities that it's a new game every shot,
yes, that's
right?
right.
That's what I
Yep.
like about it.
If we treated all sports like that, I think we'd be a
Mhm.
lot more interested in other
Yeah.
ones too. And so I think sometimes you kind of had to, I don't want to say break the rules per se, but you certainly broke the mold and bended the rules so that it really became very inclusive, in a very natural way for you. You just wanted, like you say, socially too, you wanted people to participate, people to join in. But I think you also must have seen, their eyes light up when they did once in a
Oh, yeah.
while and when someone got interested in a new thing. And I think you're literally responsible for taking people who are probably doing things today that they may never have thought of or are still doing them that they may have stopped. And what do you think that is about you that pushes you to do that and consistently all your life do that?
Mm. Well, I mean, it sounds arrogant, but it feels great to make people feel great. Like there's nothing more powerful than saying to somebody, you look good or way to go, or I bet you'd be really good at this. And I know sometimes people say, well, that's kind of contrived. I say, well, yeah, maybe it is. So, I mean, at the end of the day, if you say to somebody they look good and they smile and feel better about themselves, that's a win for them. It's certainly a win for me. Is that self-serving? I don't know, but I'm going to continue to do it. And people do it to me all the time, and I see people do it. So to me, that's important. I mean, remember, like you said, we took a ferry across to Quillon and up to Luskville to go rock climbing. I had Russ Thompson with me, right? I mean, I'm sure Russ would tell you to this day, he never would have gone rock climbing if we had not done it. Catherine Keeley. I mean, there's a whole load of characters. Did I get permission to do that? Excuse me, I'm not sure. Uh, you talk about breaking the rules. I mean, for years, to this day, people used to say, hopefully you can retire before you get fired. Or they call me reckless and irresponsible. Well, I kind of wanted it to look that way, right? Excuse me. So, because the truth is, if you followed the rules and a lot of these things with school, we went up to the Sonnenberg's hunt camp because a couple of girls in our outdoor ed program in the Enviro said they didn't think trapping was or hunting was acceptable. They thought it was, terrible. So I said, well, let's go. Let's find it. And of course, Doug Sonnenberg, right? Benji was in the class and up we went. Would I have been allowed to do that? Absolutely never. Right? Driving up to California Road, a group, I was willing to take that risk because I thought it was going to be worthwhile. Uh, that's kind of the way I've rolled but I must admit, it used to be, I get sensitive about people saying, oh man, or did you just make that test up? I said, yeah, actually I made it up at 3 this morning. I have 6 kids. We were running a farm for years when I was in Almont. I had to bike to school sometimes. Yeah, I made it up at 3 in the morning, but I knew that it was going to represent exactly what I had taught up until then. So was that flying by the seat of my pants? Not really, because I planned to do the test at 3 in the morning, you know,
Well,
right? So that's the answer for me.
I think it's perfect because, and I think what this is a constant theme that runs through so much of what I teach. I think flying by the seat of your pants is also you listening to your instincts, right?
Mm,
And sometimes if someone needs that compliment, you may think you're saying it for you, but probably they needed it, and you were just
hmm.
listening to your instincts.
Yeah,
And when you were responding to what your class needed and trying to help educate them, that day rock climbing sits in my mind as vivid as I went
yeah,
yesterday.
right.
And there's so many things I did since then because I couldn't believe how quickly I could learn to rock climb and how,
Hmm.
high and crazy
Yeah.
things you could do, how fast. So why wouldn't I try something else? Because if that's possible, what else is possible,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
So all those things you did Sure, flying by the seat of the pants. That's the old B. Dixter instincts coming out.
Oy.
And we've
Yeah.
all done better off because of it. So I
Well,
think,
thank you.
truthfully, a lot of it's just too planned, right? We're following too many guidelines. We're following too much curriculum that the whole world's
Yeah.
getting that is missing out on a whole lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And we're lacking in some areas because of it. So you
Mhm.
saved a lot of us, that's for sure. Interestingly, you then, well, and I should say you you taught in about three towns, right? Kind of beside each other. Would that
Yeah, so before I got to Almont, I taught on a reserve in Quebec.
okay?
So I taught K to 12 on a small reserve south of Val d'Or, Rouen, Noranda. A little town called Winnoway was a native Algonquin reserve. And so that was an eye opener, of course. It was extraordinary. I mean, I'll never forget as long as I live. And I still talk to those people regularly, and it's incredible. Um, so I learned a lot about how to deal with adversity and what people are going through. And they were pumped to be at school. I mean, pumped. They would break into the school. I mean, that's the kind of thing they needed because their home life was far from ideal. And then I came to Elmont because, I had a situation where I, had to fight for custody of my children. Excuse me. So uh, I ended up in Elmont thanks to Ray Lamb. Mrs. Lamb grabbed me in church at Christmas and said that I had an interview. And I came to Elmont to teach two classes grade of math. And I'm a phys ed geography teacher, right? So, and I had no vehicle. I had two kids. And so I had to buy a bike. Well, I didn't buy the bike. I actually asked the local guy if I could have a bike and pay him later. And that was February. So the first day driving over to Elmont, February 4th or whatever in 1986 or so, it was about 2 feet of snow on the curb service road on the 8th line. It took me about an hour, and I was frozen solid. But anyway, I had a lot of fun, and of course got into cycling more than ever before because I was 15K to school, 15K home, and so that's where my triathlon thing started. Um, so anyway, that was the reserve. Then there was Almont, and then I taught in Smith Falls twice. I taught at Chimo for a year. I taught out west on a Gulf Island for a year after I left Almont. And then I taught at Caldwell for one semester,
Mm.
and then Carleton Place High. So yeah, I've been in 3 provinces and 7 schools, maybe. I don't know, something like that. Yeah.
Well, and you left our high school to go to your home high school, and we all understood.
Hmm.
But in an interesting way, you were still a coach and mentor to all the people at both schools then, which there definitely was a rivalry between the two
Right.
schools in certain sports. But you like, filled that gap, and in a weird way, you had so many things that the schools did together to train, and you've really brought those two places together, and still to this day cheer on the kids from both those schools.
Well, I mean, I still have a lot of orange and black in my drawer, right? Drawers, and the other part is Rick Loughton and Chris Spratt, people like that. They do that kind of thing, right? I mean, that's kind of who those are mentors of mine as well. And to this day, Rick Loughton continues to coach track. 17 years retired. He coaches anyone that comes to him. I mean, he's an Elmont guy, born and bred, and he loves CP. Your coaches aren't prior kids, but he would coach literally anyone that showed interest. And Chris Spratt is completely the same. So those guys had a huge, profound effect on me, even to this day.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
all of you guys would even give your time not just to coach before and after school, but literally your one-on-one time to anybody who expressed interest. Oh, gets me
Yep.
emotional.
Yeah, I know.
Because it's just that, like, there was nothing you guys would stop at to do for a student, even someone who wasn't a student that was struggling. And so it's just, there's something very humane and real and natural about the way things used to be. I don't know sometimes if I was in an exceptional period and just got really lucky. I still to this day don't know. But when I see all of you people, you're still the same way as retired teachers, encouraging
Mm-hmm.
people. So maybe it's in your blood, and that's just the way you guys always would have been. In your later years in Carlton Place, you developed a CrossFit program.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just another example of everything we've been talking about, and we can get into that. But can you explain sort of how that developed and how you were motivated to
Mm-hmm.
push that all the way through?
So what I found is we had this brand new weight room at Crown Place High. It was built at the front of the school. It was a lawn, and now it was a fitness room. So it was filled with all these mirrors, and it was from a fitness studio perspective, it was absolutely perfect at the front of the school. All the mirrors. I mean, it was a gorgeous room. So I taught this strength and conditioning class in there, and it went really, really well. But what I noticed is that everybody was staring in the mirror at themselves constantly, and they were really worried about how they looked. And it kind of just rubbed me the wrong way. I had been training, most of my high school and adult life. So I also was getting a little bored of the classic kind of, what we would call it, bodybuilding approach, even though I don't have a problem with it at all, obviously. But what I thought is that it was excluding a lot of kids that didn't look good. I mean, or traditionally, stereotypically. So I thought, you know what, it's time for me to find something a little different and maybe move away from staring at yourself in the mirror nonstop. So when I had a chance to kind of move out of that room, I was actually forced out of it, but I saw the opportunity. I said, I don't want any of these mirrors, and I don't want any of the machines, because I also felt like we sit all day, or at least a good portion of our day. Well, we shouldn't maybe sit down to work out. It just seemed completely opposite to what, like, you talk about movement all the time, right? Just move. Well, to me, that was a big thing. And CrossFit just happened to be a new, I think there were 6 of us talking online about it in 2003. I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm the only guy in the world that knew about it, but I was always looking for new ways to
Mhm.
to train people, and myself for that matter. And so I came across this, and I thought, well, that'll be fun. And then of course I tried it, and it kind of kicked my tail. And I thought, okay, this is more fun, and I have to learn new skills, and it included all the different gymnastics. Well, what I liked about it is that it allowed everybody to work out on their level. So that's how I really worked at the program, was trying to make it so that if Kristy Wood wanted to do this, nobody could stop you from doing that. When you stand in a gym and you play volleyball with people like you, it can be difficult because you're really good. And even though you're a gracious person and you would pass the ball to the person that wasn't, it's not in your nature to do that because there's a score, right? So I found a lot of girls, especially, were sitting on the sidelines wishing they never had to take gym ever again in their life. Why would they want to play dodgeball with a bunch of grade 11 boys that are having the time of their life? Why would they want to come to gym when they know they're going to not get chosen for the team? I thought, you know what? I want it to be something they can control. So that really was the basis of the program. I think that's why it was successful.
That's amazing, because actually it's funny when, we talk about being athletic or not. Um, it really impacted me, and I'll just kind of try and make this story short. But when I was really sick and you saw that I was going into treatment and trying to get better, you sent me a note, and you were still a teacher, but you were trying to involve people in CrossFit. I had never had much experience with CrossFit. You sent me a note and said, when you're better, I'm going to bring you into the CrossFit gym and show you some stuff.
Mhm.
And at the time, it was very encouraging to me, because I thought, oh, how nice. You think I'm going to get better. I'm probably never going to get there again. But you didn't give up. And then a few months later, you sent another note, just wondering where you are, if you're ready
Mhm.
for the gym. I think it took me a couple of times, and I was like, I was nervous. I was scared. I was
Right.
worried about my abilities. I was inferior because I hadn't been exposed to CrossFit. I was going into a facility I had never been before. And you made it as amazing as it possibly could be for anybody. And it really made, that was the day I realized that this isn't anything about you being a teacher. This is so much bigger than that. And that literally changed my determination to
Oh,
get
nice.
back fit and healthy as I was before. And yeah, it took a few more years for sure, but it was kind of cool. And there's one story I have when I was there one day, because you even sort of encouraged me to come by myself early in the mornings. I'd gone one night with a bunch of friends, and there was another teacher there. I think he was retired, and you guys were all doing these squats. And of course, I can't remember the proper terminology, but they're lifting huge weight. Like they're
Hmm.
lifting huge weight. And so
Right.
I'm starting pretty small and I don't really have the form down. And so all you guys are trying to help me, and I'm embarrassed because, that's, I
That's
like to
natural. Yeah.
do things for myself. Anyway, one of you guys turned around and said, "Holy, I wish I could do a squat like that. Look how low
Yeah, I
you
remember
are."
that.
And I'm
Correct.
like, and I instantly went, and then at first, your first thought is, oh, they're just saying that to try and, make me feel better. And then one of them jokingly did it. And I'm like, oh, oh. So it's so simple, but I think we also forget that it doesn't matter who we are. If we're good at one thing, we're not at another. If there's one aspect of it we can do well, someone else can do something else well. And so it's this term of whether you're athletic or not, I wish was thrown right out the window,
Hmm.
because we're all meant to move. There's not one of us that isn't meant to move in some way that feels good for our body. All of our bodies want us to move
Yeah.
some way, somehow. And I think the fact that you can expose so many people to so many things helps us find something that, suits us and works for us. But you also have encouraged people when they're even resisting to try and do this for themselves. So mostly I want to thank you for that, because I know I'm one of thousands. It's not an under overstatement by any means. And you really have done that for people. And sometimes I remember one teacher said to me that they were told the first day of teachers college, if you ever think you're going to get a thank you, you might as well walk out the door right now.
Right. Yeah.
But I hope you've gotten lots of thank yous, because just people I talk to always talk about how you've been an inspiration, you motivated them, you pulled them out of tough, dark spots, and that's so beyond just being a teacher for sure. I know the whole CrossFit thing became really challenging for you because just insurance and who you're allowed to
Right.
invite and when you're allowed to invite them, and you really had to try your best to keep it available to as many people as possible. And so where does that stand now that you've retired?
Well, the nice part is that there was a fellow that was across the hall that would join in. His name is Scott Strawn, very athletically minded guy and and a good athlete. But he he really enjoyed listening to it from across the hall. And I think sometimes he was surprised by what was going on. But anyway, I asked him if he'd be interested in taking it on. And he had a class, one, you can teach 6 credits a year, 3 each semester. And so I had a seventh. And so he took one on and thoroughly enjoyed it. And he had his own spin on it because he was starting to return to running and became still running. He's running in the Boston Marathon or New York City Marathon, sorry, November.
Awesome.
And so I knew that he was going to bring that to the table, and I couldn't bring the running so much personally because I, shattered my ankle in a fall, in 2004. But so he's taken it on, and the program continues to roll. And I think he still calls it CrossFit. He took his level 1 CrossFit course, so he's got the official, we'll call it, designation, and it's still very, very popular. So I mean, I haven't really been in since I retired, obviously due to COVID restrictions, and also because I wanted it to become his program. And he seems energized, and the kids that are in the program seem energized. And yeah, the school system was reluctant, of course, to do anything like, well, it's no different than going rock climbing or our outdoor ed program that Andy Kerr-Wilson ran to extraordinary success. But it scares the school board because of liability.
Mhm.
So, the truth is you have to kind of, there's certain rules you can't bend, right?
Yep.
And they are in charge of any liability. So I understood it. I didn't like it. And I tried my best to, I guess we'll say, break the rules. And, but they did let me run a community program out of there at 6 in the morning and in the evenings. And they might not have known I was in there every weekend kind of thing and in the summer, but the custodian certainly knew. And yeah, it was a really, really fantastic time for sure.
That's awesome. So now I see you do a lot of biking, on and off road biking. Is that sort of your preferred sport of choice?
Well, because I don't have access to the gym, I've creating my own gym here now, slowly build a pergola, and I'm eventually gonna, do a modified version of what I used to do in the CrossFit gym. So the cycling though was something that got me out of I had COVID in March when it all started. My wife had it, my son had it. It's kind of right at the beginning when nobody really knew what was happening. And then I got it and it really hit me hard. Um, and so I wasn't able to do any kind of, well, I couldn't go anywhere to train anyway. Gyms were closed. So I thought, what can I do other than walking, which although I know it's a great exercise, for me, it wasn't stimulating enough. And I try to walk with my wife, but she's just a better walker. She would just lose me in her dust. And so she wasn't getting much out of it either. So anyway, I thought I'm going to return to the bike. And then the best thing to do is get off the main roads because it's dangerous.
Mhm.
And that's how it all started. And I've probably done 20,000 or so. Some guys cycle 20,000 kilometers a year, but since COVID, I've probably done 25,000 kilometers and as much in the woods as I can.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a true testament to your um no, lack of willingness to give up, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And I
And
think
you know that yourself
uh,
personally. Yeah.
yeah, and it's like, you sometimes, even though you did certain sports throughout life, it changes through different evolutions of our life, and we should always
Yeah.
be looking for just what that thing is that makes us enjoy doing it,
Yeah.
right? And it can change. I definitely see all the logs of the kilometers, and as much as I probably should be doing closer to that, I'm
Yeah.
not. But it's amazing
Well,
to
life
see.
gets in the way too, right?
It's
Right. So
it's
you got to sneak the miles in and, again, right? Like that's part of it. You got to make it a balance. And I could say, my wife could tell you this as well. I mean, because she's so extraordinarily busy. Um, and she has no, like, when I start making excuses for things, I mean, she doesn't, she just goes about her business and she gets things done 100 times more than I do. And I know you said it'd be cool to get her in on this as well because she's got a whole other mindset than I do. She's she is not self-serving in the slightest. She just serves others and serves the little kitties there. But yeah, it's the cycling thing about it. What I like about it too is it clears your mind. Like going for a walk, you get to see things, wherever you live. But
Mhm.
and running's great too. I can't run anymore, and you get to see something different. You're outside of your own zone,
Yeah.
so it's not travel, but it sort of feels like travel. Whether you're up in the backwoods of Clayton or riding down down your road, which you go down regularly, it's just mentally stimulating, and of course, getting exercise at the same time. And you can do it on your own, which is terrific, especially with COVID. And you're not bound by anybody's schedule. You can just go out the door anytime you want. So for me, that's been a bonus. And then, yeah, it's fun to join in with people, obviously. So that's where the slow spokes came in. I didn't create it. I can't take any credit for it, but I am trying to continue it on the behalf of the guys and girls that started it. So
That's
anyway,
awesome.
that's the situation there with the cycling.
Cool. And so yeah, you touched on Shelly, and maybe we can just share the her what she's doing right now a little bit, only because I know a part of you saying, go do it, you know, it's the right thing for you is really kind of all we've been talking about, right? And this
Yeah.
maybe isn't fitness related, but it's a passion, and
Hmm.
it's probably something that, all common sense would tell her, don't go get into this. This is too much work. This is going to take, too much money, and it's
Yeah.
undertaking that will never end.
Right.
But you told her to go for it, and she did it too. So, do you want to?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and and she would have done it without my blessing, I'm sure. But she is a force of nature. Like I said that about my mom, but I mean, Shelley is just she's unselfish and nothing gets in her way. She'd drive through a snowstorm. She would go out in a tsunami. I mean, it wouldn't matter. I find it, it marvels me to see her dedication, and she's crawling through farmers' fields and helping people do things. Like you said, the money, of course, she's got to raise money to pay for vet bills, right? So
Yeah,
that part is also, and that's not glamorous. I
no.
mean, it's cool to get a kitten
We
and get
should
it and
probably
then
explain that Shelly has
yeah,
a cat rescue.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Dickie's cause for paws,
yeah, Dickie's cause for pause,
thousands
and
of kittens.
literally takes on a bigger cat rescue than big, huge organizations all
You
by
got it.
herself. So
Yeah,
it's pretty amazing what she does. And yeah, like you
yeah.
say, late nights, bad weather,
Doesn't matter.
climbing through. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty amazing what she does. I think it's also, I'm glad for her that she's in a community of people, who are thankful to both of you for what you do, because I'm sure it couldn't exist without the donations that
Oh, totally. I mean, she's got extraordinary support, and it's been cool. Is it? She's supported me all those years. I mean, people used to say to me, "Man, you're so busy and you did all the things." I'm like, "Hey, guess what? My Shelly was here taking care of that business. I mean, if I'm at a track meet in Windsor, uh, or I'm on a canoe trip, in Crotch Lake, or we're at Camp Open Mekon, or wherever we went, and we went a lot of places. I got to bring my kids a few times whenever it was appropriate, but a lot of times, 99% of the time, Shell was at home taking care of the kids. And when we had a farm for 5 years in Cedar Hill, I mean that, the chores still needed to be done, right? Um, so yeah, I mean, I try to support her as well, but I mean, she does all the work. There's no question. I feed the cats once a day, sometimes not once a day. She does 3 times a day, and she does it all. So support is critical. You're right, though, right?
yeah,
And that's the bonus.
yes, and clearly it went both ways, so that's awesome. But I think support, even in the way of just believing in the other person, is
For
huge,
sure.
right? And I know
Yeah.
you had no doubt that she could do this and would do it to this level. So
Yeah.
that's awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely have to get chatting with her and get her on and talk about her program, because I know she has a million stories
She
she
does.
could share.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm not going to hold you up much longer,
No
but I
problem.
do want some final words from the Dickster for everybody, because
Well,
I
I mean, I'm just so humbled that I've had these opportunities. I feel completely, it's like every Facebook and Instagram meme you read, I feel like I believe in them strongly. And I just, I'm astonished at how great kids are. And like you said earlier, it doesn't matter whether they've come from a good home, a bad home, whether they've got a great score on an IQ test, or, I mean, kids are incredible. And the friends that I feel I have now as a result of my opportunities to work with them. Uh, Like we got a stag and doe this weekend coming up for my oldest son, Rye. And like I can't believe, I know there'll be tons of kids, that are going to be there that I taught that are coming to support him and his honey. She's an Almont girl, Pakenham girl, Delny Burke,
nice.
home of the 5 span.
Yep.
So, but that part has been the most extraordinary part, is just the friendships and the relationships that I've been able to have as a result of the opportunities I've been given to teach. And I just can't say enough about how I feel it's embarrassing sometimes to answer people's questions and say, well, how's it going? I said, well, it couldn't be better. I couldn't have had a better life, given the opportunities I've been given. So I don't know if that sums it up, but to me, it's been incredible. It's been an
Well,
incredible
and
ride.
maybe it's just better because that's how you perceive it, and so
Hmm.
you create better, right? Um,
Yeah.
you've definitely, I think what you said in there is so true, is um, you saw things as better. You saw the good in every student and person or anybody you're influencing or coaching along the way. You saw their heart. You saw the real part of them that wanted to come out despite whatever their circumstances might have been at the time, or even outward appearances that might have suggested that you should leave them alone or not encourage them. It's like you could look deeply into who they really were and their heart. And that's how I think you've been able to touch people. But that's also why if we run into you at a restaurant downtown, we can't find any time to talk to you because there's
Mm.
about 20 other people that want to catch up with you too, because you really did. You have touched the hearts of all the people you've come across over the years, and we're very grateful. Um, so it's not by mistake that we call you the legendary Dixter.
Oh boy.
And mostly, I know it's probably hard for you to hear all this, but I think it also has to be said. So it's
Well,
just
thank
a
you.
huge amount of gratitude from many towns all around you. And I also appreciate you taking the time to share some of your philosophies today, because I think it's a little more of what we all need to think about and strive for. So thank you for that as
Well,
well.
my absolute pleasure, and thanks for inviting me. And you need to be interviewed by you, of course, right? Because you're doing
Oh,
the
this,
same thing, right, with your own journey and what you've been through. And I know you wrote the book, but you're living. You didn't just write a book; you lived it, right? And you're still living it, right? So I mean, it's amazing how it works. Paying
yeah,
it forward all the time.
pay it forward. Absolutely. So thanks so much. And I'm sure we'll be in touch.
Right on.
Around